Hi everyone, welcome to the Data File Formatting webinar brought to you by Convey Compliance Systems. For the next several minutes, we're going to be talking about some helpful hints that should be considered when beginning the yearly process of 1099 reporting as it relates to preparing data files. We will start by covering some general formatting best practices and then jump into two of the most common types of files, Excel and fixed length text, which is also sometimes called flat files. There are other types of files that you may be working with, but these tend to be the most common, so we will focus on them for the remainder of this webinar. It's important to note that although we are focusing on these two specific types of file formats, a lot of what we'll be covering today can directly be applied to various other types of file formats as well. At the highest level, there are 4 steps that you must follow to complete information reporting. This applies to anyone who is using a 1099 product which is not part of their payment system. The first step is exporting the data from your payment system so that you can import or load this data into your 1099 product. This is generally done by using your payment system to create a data file that can then be loaded into your 1099 solution. After that comes the printing and mailing of the 1099 forms, and finally filing these forms to the IRS and other state agencies if applicable. Beyond that, you may also need to apply customer service as well, answer calls and do corrections and reprints. But in general, these are the 4 steps that you must follow. This webinar is focused on the first step, which is creating the file that will be used to load into your 1099 solution. The goal is to provide you best practices as well as alert you of some common missteps that we see occur during this phase of the process. By creating a file using best practices, you can avoid frustrations as well as wasted time by needing to recreate data files a second, third, or subsequent times. You will also reduce the risk of printing and filing incorrect information. The first step to generating your import file is planning. You should map out the steps that you're going to take or review the current processes and procedures that are already in place. First and foremost, you need to determine what type of file you will need to extract from your payment system. You'll want to make sure this format is supported by your 1099 solution. You can typically find this information in their help documentation. The most common formats are Excel and fixed length text, but other formats like IRS 1220 or Common Delimited may also be options. Next, you'll need to determine what fields you will need in your data file. You will need to include all of the IRS required fields such as TIN or Social Security number / EIN, the name of the recipient, their address, as well as the payment information. Some payment and 1099 solutions allow you to load each and every payment made throughout the year, otherwise sometimes called transactions, while others require just the year-end totals. You want to consult both your payment and 1099 product documentation to determine which will work. There are some payments that are made that do not need a 1099 produced. For example, you currently don't need to send a 1099 payment to corporations or certain exempt recipients. You may be able to save time by excluding these from the file creation process. Finally, the most important part of this process is control totals. After you load your data file into your 1099 solution, the first thing you should do is run a report and verify the amount of records and box totals that are included. When you load the data into your 1099 solution, you're going to want to run that same report and compare the totals to make sure that both the record count and the box totals match up accurately. Now let's look at Excel formatted files specifically. There are a few do's and don'ts which may save you many headaches as you begin the import process. First, make sure your Excel file has a header row. By header row, I mean the first row in your spreadsheet is not actually data, but rather a description of what that column represents. Almost all 1099 programs require a header row in your Excel sheet. You should verify what format the data cells are in your Excel sheet. Most of the time, formatting your Excel sheet as text will ensure that your data gets imported correctly. You should also make sure your Excel sheet is formatted consistently throughout. Each column should have the same formatting applied to it. For example, you should ensure that each amount field is formatted to include cents. Sometimes if the formatting is set as general, the cents aren't always included and can cause issues during the import process. And now for the don'ts. Don't include extra formatting such as comments, frozen panes, or other formatting options. This can cause programs to read data incorrectly. Also, don't just total the amounts at the bottom of your spreadsheet to use as control totals. You should get a report from your payment system to use for balancing. If there was a problem with the extract, you wouldn't catch it if you're just totaling the amount columns in the sheet. Another common file format is fixed length text. This is typically used for higher volume filers, but it really depends on your payment system and 1099 program. Below is an example of what a fixed length text file looks like. Your 1099 solution may or may not require a header role. In general, it's typically a good idea to include this, but be sure to check your documentation to be sure. Make sure that all data in the file is left justified. Your data should line up in columns if you view it within a text editor. Control totals may be included in a separate report or as part of the file. In many fixed length text files, the control totals are included as a header or trailer record within the file. In either case, you should pull a control total report from your payment system to ensure everything was included that should have been. Again, make sure formatting of dollar amounts is consistent. You should either always include cents with a decimal point or exclude the decimal. Most programs can handle either method, but consistency is the key. This concludes our file formatting best practices and time-saving tips and tricks. If you have any questions about Convey or Convey's tax information reporting solutions, please call 1-888-303-1099 or visit www.convey.com. And finally, you can keep current on topics around 1099 reporting by reading our tax information blog at www.1099news.com. Thanks, and have a great day.